Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Now, what is most important in building our business, especially if you're early stage company? It's getting those new logos, those new accounts, those new opportunities. And marketing, they're working their butts off and they're converting a lot of people, but it's a lot of leads. It's a lot of early stage stuff. What we need is a cold outreach that is warm, that people can do every day without going crazy and going home and having problems, and people who aren't getting rejected. That's what we're going to talk to about today. I got Jason Price from Co-Video. He's kind of going to share what's working for them today. I'm going to share back what I've heard from other clients and guests on the show about what's working. And it's, of course, contextual. It all depends on who you're selling to, what channel they pay attention to, how they want to be approached, what they care about. All of that does matter. I get that. But certainly what has changed is that we're bombarded by email, social touches, ads, content. We're kind of hit the perfect storm where all of this stuff's effectiveness has diminished. And so we can become incredibly creative, or maybe take a step back and find out what really does work about things like relationships, about connection. So Jason's going to share what has worked for him. His company's doing fantastic, and he's on that edge where video is what is working today in 2018. Now, I've been experimenting with video probably for 6 or 7 years right now. I found, YouTube is somewhat effective, and, I can't say it hasn't been, but now YouTube or video on LinkedIn is super effective. Video on Twitter is more effective. Video ads that are very concise on Instagram and Facebook are super effective. I'd be happy to help any of you with that. You can copy what I'm doing, or I can show you exactly what to do for pennies on the dollar to get things going. That's what start the conversation and get the meetings all about. Also, 2 of my partners have ponied up with a coupon code for everybody. Now, if you want to really find out the key KPI in any deal, what is it? It's relationships. It's old school. How do we know each other? Are we in the same tribe? That's not going to change. It's probably not going to change for a couple hundred years from now. That key relationship is never going to change. So the coupon code is Brutal Truth, and Brutal Truth also works for a 30-day eval of Pipedrive. Pipedrive has got a new sequencing tool that just blows away everything else. So if you haven't committed to a CRM yet, or you want a CRM that really people want to use, try pipedrive.com, Brutal Truth coupon, 30-day eval. Hey, Jason, welcome back to the show. As a way of getting started, give us a little update on yourself.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me back. It's been a good month. We're in the middle of a very big product release. We have a couple of very cool things coming out in June that I'm very excited about, and we're just finishing those pieces up. Personally, I'm heading to Paris next Wednesday. I head to the French Open. This is my 6th year in a row. I love taking that trip, and very excited to make that happen. And what about you? What's new on your end, Brian?
It's been a crazy year here, to tell you the truth. I kind of made a huge change in my business, going 100% digital, no traveling. Probably the opposite of what you're doing. But
sure, no doubt.
It's been a lot of fun, and it's been, really productive, being able to stay in one place and really engage with the audience and see what, all these different companies are doing from the rep perspective instead of from just the the manager down perspective. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, I've noticed you the content you've been publishing, particularly on LinkedIn, you're getting a ton of traction from that, creating a lot of good conversation. So I assume that's a big part of the strategy.
Yeah, what really aligns with what you're doing is that video certainly on LinkedIn has been prioritized. I've kind of figured out their algorithm and their timing. But what seems to resonate is humor, right? And humor about what we're doing, sales and marketing, right?
Sure.
And then how it relates to the real world, right? Because we think, since our job is marketing and sales, it's someone else's job to buy. And that's not really how it works, right?
Of course. Got to tie the two together. No, it's great.
Hey, so let's dig into kind of your view on, what motivates you and the culture of your company. How has that evolved since you started this?
It's a great question. So, for me, it's I think a lot of things have changed fundamentally over the last 4 or 5 years. I think from the beginning when we first started CoVideo back in 2004, for me, I was, and I don't even know if I knew specifically why, I just was very motivated and excited to build a company, to sort of have the future in my own hands. And I've loved that journey. Being an entrepreneur has been amazing. It's given me a ton of freedom. But I would say probably what drives me more than anything at this stage in my career, and it's been like this for many years, is really the people in my company. I think everyone needs something that they got to really focus on that's beyond money or rewards in that nature. And, for me, I'm just so incredibly motivated to see each and every one of these people succeed. I want to be able to develop them professionally. And my goal is really for them to be able to build a better career here at CoVideo than they could at any other company on the planet. So I'm just, super emotionally committed to that, to their success. I love seeing it, and I'm very excited to be a part of that.
And how do you do that from a tactical standpoint, other than, kind of the interpersonal thing? I'm sure you got that going well.
Sure.
A great building, a hot market space. What are your tactics in doing that?
Well, I think you got to look at each person individually, right? So I think there are some things we can do culturally, and we can dive into that. But in terms of how you really get somebody moving in the right direction, understanding what the right career path is for that person, to be able to give them the tools and coaching and information they need to succeed. That's super individual. What really gasses one person up may not get another person excited. So I think it's really important that those interpersonal relationships are there. I would say on the sales team, there's a couple of things that we do just to really keep them extremely motivated. I'd say the first is just very, very clear goals in terms of what our expectations are, and then what activity we expect them to do to actually make those goals happen. I would say one of the things that we do, which I'm sure a lot of companies are doing, but which has been very effective, is our scorecard in terms of our sales reps' progress is public. So every sales meeting that we have each week, it's really a grind into each individual person's numbers. So, if you're the low person on the scorecard that month, that in itself is motivating, right? Because you're constantly being made aware of where your position is at and where you're at aligned with goal. And it's not about a manager telling them to do that. It's essentially sort of the peers being able to help support that growth as well. But I'd say for us, really clearly defining goals. And then you made a point in the beginning of the office and the culture. I think that's important too. But, it's more than just a ping pong table and beer on tap and, all the team outings we do. I think it's more about how we operate. And so one of the things here that's been our guiding principle, and I say this all the time, I value far more about how our team works together, how they interact together, how they treat each other. Far more than the results, if that makes sense. What I don't like to see is a sales rep, taking advantage of maybe a lead opportunity that maybe somebody else is. Just for me, it's not that they can't have robust dialogue and disagreements and have those conversations. But for me, our culture is at the end of the day, we're a team, we're together. We come first, and we got to take care of each other. And that's how I think when people come in, they feel safe in that environment. It allows them to be themselves. And I'd say that's one of the things that really makes it much easier for me to keep these guys motivated.
Because it must be hard when you're managing the whole thing. Because developers are, motivated by certain things. Marketing people are motivated by certain things. Operations is completely motivated by other things.
Sure.
How much time do you spend being referee as opposed to coach versus cheerleader?
Good. So for me, luckily, the last year has been a lot more coaching and cheerleader, which is great. We did bring in a sales director last January who is now responsible for really all the refereeing. And so you're still going to have that going on. Yeah. And so I really rely on the team to make that happen. I would say, where I'm engaged with them now is more from a strategic level, right? So if someone's missing their numbers or behind, they're really not going to hear anything negative from me. They're going to hear more positive things. So like last month, For example, one of our reps who has really been one of our most consistent performers, never misses numbers, consistently hits them, was just having a very bad run of it. And so I went down and spent some time with him, and my focus was, what levers can we pull? What are you currently doing? What are some new ways that we can really go out and attack your pipeline and make something happen? And so we came up with a couple ideas. And so I would say that I focus now much more on how can I help this team get where they need to be, as opposed to the refereeing. And I actually enjoy that a hell of a lot more. So I'm very glad about that.
And how about on the other side? Do you have an operations person that kind of keeps the trains running on time and everything as well?
Yeah, we do. So, we're somewhat of a small company, right? We have 35 employees. So we have our director of account management up here, which is really in charge of all of our support, maintenance, operations that way. My partner, him and I built the company together. He actually runs our development. And so it's really a nice mix of our team making sure that happens, but we have a good process into place to ensure that that's there. So operationally, like I said, it's been a good run the last year. I'm not really in the details anymore in terms of, whether or not activities are being met. We've got a great team in place to make that happen.
Excellent. And so what you're looking for is competitive people, or just having a competitive culture, but the friendly competition. Is that it? Or?
Yeah, it's a fine line. Sometimes it doesn't even need to be friendly. I mean, I'm okay if it really doesn't. No, and I'm telling you, like our sales leader right now, who has consistently been our sales leader, I'm telling you, at times it gets not quite what I would say friendly, but at the end of the day, there's still a deep respect about how we operate and who we are as people, and that's the most important thing. So I'm okay with a little bit of pushing and a little bit of drive to maybe catch somebody and having some really strong conversations about what our goals are and how we're getting there. But at the end of the day, it's an interesting balance, because when you want people to be competitive against each other, but at the same time show a tremendous amount of respect and take care of each other, it can be difficult on the sales floor. I would say one of the ways that we make that a little bit easier is our process in terms of how leads are distributed, how our sales process is implemented in terms of what the follow-up requirements are, how our outbound team actually drive leads into the account executives. That's so airtight that in most cases, it kind of takes care of most of those problems, to where it's really black and white in terms of what the next step is and how they should actually approach the problem. But yeah, I think for me, the competitiveness of that group is very important.
And how long did it take to get through that process, or to design a system that you're comfortable with? It sounds like you're pretty comfortable with it now.
I am, but I got to tell you with it. We just talked about it last week. I mean, I feel like we're always making improvements to it. One of the things that we do right now that a lot of people are not doing, or that our sales reps, our account executives, are actually directly in the line of fire around robin leads or inbound leads. And we get a ton of inbound leads every single month. And so what a lot of guys do is they put that like a qualifier in the middle, right? To where when these leads come in, that person qualifies those leads, decides where the best place for that lead to go is. And so a lot of times what ends up happening, because our account executives take it, if they don't do the proper research, it might be possible that another rep was working it. So we do run into a couple scenarios where it's not as clean as it needs to be. So once again, we're always improving. So I expect what we'll be doing hopefully in the next month or so is actually hiring some people that will really be on the front lines, qualifying the opportunities first, and then passing off to the account executive to handle the sales presentation. So I think that'll give us a tremendous boost there.
Yeah, I got to imagine that, even with a small company, that does get confusing. Somebody calls in and they've got a question, and it's not the first time they've called, or somebody's been trying to get them to get on the phone, and all of a sudden now they call in, and it's like, hey, it took me 2 months to get the person to surface.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We see it all the time.
And have you separated an inbound team from an outbound team, or is that in the works?
We have. No, we've had that for quite a while, and I think that's super critical. So the activity, at least from our end, what we've found is a prospecting activity, someone that's going to go out and hit the phones. A lot of this is cold calls, right? Cold emails, cold phone calls to actually generate leads is a very different skill set than someone that's going to do a sales presentation, negotiate price, and actually close the deal. So those two functions in our company are very separate.
Excellent. And where do you see it going as far as the rest of this year? You going to stick with this strategy, or are you going to experiment a little, or?
Well, we're always experimenting, honestly. I mean, for me, we have to be. Yeah. So we have some things that are working very well. I mean, this is, the fourth year in a row that we're looking to grow at a very high rate, between 50 and 100% growth. We're on track to do hopefully 100% this year. And so we have a lot of things that are working. But, as you know, Brian, if you keep doing the same thing, that eventually will stop working. I can tell you one of the things that had really grown our business significantly from about 2014 to 2016 into 2017 was a straight up call center, outbound, cold call process, 100 calls a day, setting appointments, and then moving on to the next call. And the ROI on that activity for us, and I've talked to a lot of other business owners and sales managers, really dwindled throughout 2017. And so what we've had to do this year is incorporate a lot more email into that strategy as a first touch to really earn the right to make that call. And I can tell you the conversion's getting much higher again, the ROI is getting back. So, I think a lot of people, clearly the calls are important. So we align calls at the right moment. But I think these sort of blind calls to unqualified people that don't want to hear from you are not always the best way. So we incorporate a couple things now. Number one, like I said, as an email, it's a softer introduction that's really asking for that permission to have the phone call. And then we're utilizing LinkedIn and social media as a way to get in front of these people, connect with them, start dripping out our information so that when a call finally happens a couple months down the road, we're in a much better position to have that conversation. So I would say up until last year, it was much more immediate. Make the call, set the appointment. I would say we're playing a much longer game now, which is taking our time and patiently working through qualified individuals to find the right person or the right fit or the right buyer. And it's having a much bigger effect for us this year.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of people not recognize that yet and double down on the calling, which I think it's making the problem worse. If you see what's going on in like Europe already with, GDPR and everything, it's like,
sure.
Sales and marketing is ruining it if they're doing it in an impersonal way. And I think what you're doing with LinkedIn is, because I can kind of see it go through my stream, that it's much more effective, that you got to kind of make people aware of the technology first, especially when you're on the cutting edge or selling something new. Right?
Sure. Well, as you're talking to sales leaders, sales managers, business owners, what are you hearing their thoughts in terms of a strictly outbound cold call process? Are you hearing a lot of people still implementing that? And if so, are they getting success with it?
I don't see anybody really having, unless on a pure outbound, it's almost nil. Because I've got people in my classes that I call, start the conversation, get the meeting. And the whole premise is you got to treat it like the real world. And in the real world, you don't go up and tap somebody on the shoulder and say, hey, start talking about you, right? You just don't do that.
Of
right?
course. Right. Right. So a very good point.
Right. So why would you think it would work in the over the phone or even through email? It's like you have to become known, liked, and trusted. And some people have a brand, right? If you've got a brand already, people know who you are. And just saying that name will pull up in their head what you do. But
sure,
I'm seeing this year has been the year that people, I think, are starting to recognize that the sales development thing has been maxed with the machinery, and what needs to go back to is what hasn't changed in sales, that it's people on the other end, and your priority isn't theirs. And
that's a good point.
Yeah. That, it's not their job to buy.
Right. Well, I can tell you what specifically has worked for us. And what we have found that's been working for us extremely well is a series of 4 emails over the course of 4 weeks. And they're plain text and they're short, no more than 2 or 3 sentences. And it's hitting on a pain point. Right. So we really researched deeply the vertical we're going after, how our product may be able to help them. We understand the pain points. And then we essentially just reach out and say, who's responsible for solving this pain point? And we're getting a lot of traction with that. But the key for us is as soon as we get that email back saying, hey, I'm that person, how can I help you? Or, hey, I'm that person, sure, I'd be happy to chat. The very next thing that we do is send, of course, a personalized video email, right? Because as we talked about, the relationship's so critical, building that trust and that rapport is so critical. And the click-through rate on that video email after you've earned the right with that generic, very simple plain text email is through the roof, almost 100%, which I'm sure, as you can imagine, is a very high percentage. And then, of course, when you get them on the call, now you've built a little rapport. They've seen you, they've heard from you, they understand who you are, and we're having a lot of success using that process right now.
And that's it. And once you get that conversation going, a lot of times I would think your sale is a time-based sale. It's like when they're open-minded about a new opportunity or a new approach. When they see it working in their space, when they can see other people having success with it, and how they use it, because I have this with a lot of clients, is that no matter how simple an application is, the learning curve, it still is a curve. It's because We're overwhelmed with, different apps and websites and tools, but what we are always looking for is something that's unique and different and that will have some effect to be able to communicate value.
Now, you've hit the nail on the head. And we deal with that every day here, right? So we have a ton of sales tools that we use, from anywhere from a CRM and chat tool to how we manage the pipeline. And it's all about understanding how the tools help the business without getting overwhelmed with them. No doubt about that.
Yeah, and let's dig into that. I mean, have you found that to be enabling, or is it more of administration? Has it flipped that curve yet, where the technology is really automating the sales process, or is it just accounting for the sales process?
I think a bit of both. I mean, I can tell you that I feel like we have a tremendous amount of automation in our entire process in terms of, especially on our outbound process, with the way the emails are queued up and it's triggered into our CRM, and that entire world that they live in every single day in terms of what their next step is, when they make the next call, how they track that call, that's all built. It's automatic. And so for them, they really don't have to come in and decide. If you think about it, you go back to when I first started Co-Video back in 2004 and I started making calls. I mean, hell, I was using I wish I was using a Google spreadsheet. At the time, it was a Microsoft Excel. And every day you're kind of coming in, man, do I make another call today? How many times have I called them? When was the last call? And it was so hard for me. And look, let's be honest, there were CRMs at the time. Plenty. Salesforce was already out. Sure, CRM was there. But, at the time, I did it the old-fashioned way. And I can tell you that it's much easier on the sales rep when a lot of that is just sort of defined for them, because now they can focus on what they do best, which is building that relationship, making the call, being present in the call, really understanding how our product can have a massive impact on the business that we're talking to. And I think it makes, I honestly think technology in terms of how we implement it here for sure makes our sales reps' lives a lot easier.
And how about on the customer success side? How have you managed that? Do you have a separate team, or is it traditional support? Is it proactive? Is it passive? What has worked for you?
Yeah, so we have a couple tiers. So we have inbound support, and they're just straight up available for coaching sessions, helping with the software, downloading, maybe showing them how to use different aspects of it. Then we have an account management team. The account management team is proactive in terms of how they interact with their clients. So essentially, once a enterprise deal is closed, and we define enterprise deals in a couple different ways, but for us, it's usually going to be in about the 4,000 to 5,000 ARR range. And so, if you're a smaller transactional account, let's say $49 a month, you'll still get access to all the support. You'll be able to log in to training webinars and tons of free coaching, but there's no, of course, proactive account management with that, right? There's just no ROI to justify that. But for all of our enterprise accounts, it's very structured with account management. Because if you think about it, we have accounts where there's up to 400 or 500 users within the organization utilizing Co-Video, and there's a lot of turnover there and a lot of training needed. And so that's where the account management team really comes in to ensure the retention. We just recently launched the account management team. It actually was a hybrid role between the account executive and support. And for us, that was long overdue. It's made a massive improvement in terms of how our customers are being retained and how we're able to deliver our service. So that was an important move for us.
And let's bring that back to the sales side. On the outbound side, do you put your whole focus on the enterprise side, or and let the inbound team deal with the onesie twosies or mom and pops?
We do.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So anything we do on the outbound is straight up enterprise. So we look at, and once again, enterprise can be said a lot. We just look at it really more from a deal size, how large the account is. And so they're focused on larger opportunities because clearly, to justify the amount of effort it takes to go out and create these opportunities, it's hard to do at a $49 a month account. And then you're absolutely right. In terms of the transactional individual user accounts, we rely really on social media, pay-per-click, digital marketing, and that's really more of an inbound opportunity that comes in that a lot of times they just sign up and buy, but they, of course, can talk to one of our transactional sales reps here that can really walk them through the software. But we separate those two roles pretty distinctly.
Yeah. And what has worked on the marketing side? Is it pay-per-click and any content working for you, or is it just word of mouth?
Yeah, it's all the above. So actually, I'll start with the last thing you said, word of mouth. I'd say one of the most important pieces to our strategy is our referral program. And the way I say that is, if you think about it, when someone's using our tool, for example, and they're, let's say, a sales manager, or a sales executive, and they're sending a personalized video to one of their clients, that also might be a manager who gets a video for the first time and says, wow, what is this? This is pretty interesting. I mean, how did you do this? And so a lot of our inbound leads come from people just simply using our tool. And we're delivering, millions of personalized video emails that are hitting the market all the time. And so because of that amount of activity from our customers, we get a lot of natural referrals just from that usage. But in terms of things that we actually control, it's really a couple approaches. Pay-per-click for us is critical on the Google side. Content. And that's one of the things that I feel a lot of people aren't doing a very good job with, is ensuring that the right content is developed on two ways. First of all, content is a very inexpensive way to get your message out there and actually drive inbound leads. But most importantly, I mean, our buyers are so informed, right? I mean, they're coming to our websites. They're learning as much about our company as they can. And so the content for me isn't just lead generation. It's also to ensure that they actually can find the information they need and allow themselves to qualify themselves as a buyer. I'd say that's one thing I'm seeing a lot of companies not doing as well as they could, is focusing on that content piece, because there's a ton of progress that can be made there. It's just really aligning how we're marketing to our customers, to the sales team, and I'm seeing a lot of companies not doing that very well.
Right. Yeah. Neither do I. And it's, the need for either a course or videos in and of themselves, like baby step the person through the process, because they trying to have somebody figure it out themselves, you'll lose them if it's not just intuitive. And
sure,
so many things aren't, right? Because everyone's putting security on things and validations, and all of a sudden you're like, well, how does this work? And and people are all distracted while they're looking at it. But hey, this has been a great conversation. What does the rest of 2018 look like for you?
So we're excited about this year. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we have some very, very cool product releases coming out. So I'm very excited about that. We do have an office in Croatia, and we're just finalizing some things with GDPR, but we're going to be making a massive push into the European market. It's interesting for us, at least with our technology in particular, what we're seeing with businesses using video in Europe. Not just personalized video email, but just video in general. It's a lot like what the States was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And so they're really in a very good position right now to start adopting this technology. And so we're going to be making a very big push into the European market here in a couple months. And we're very excited to make that happen. But a lot of good things happening over here.
Hey, I love Jason's enthusiasm. I like his approach, his adaptability. You rarely see that in a CEO. A lot of sales leaders and even us in sales and marketing, we tend to stick with what we know, and we're not adapting fast enough, because what I'm seeing is what works today, it basically has less than a shelf life of 6 months. I'm honestly seeing that, and it's shortening more and more. I can think back over the last couple of years about what works. And even podcasting, it got crowded, then there was a washout at the end of last year, but now it's fragmenting again. All of these mediums go through these waves. And I love podcasting because it is blowing up right now, and it is the passive medium where people can consume content and do other stuff: drive, exercise, walk, just enjoy their life, relax, close their eyes, and that's why I love it. I listen to podcasts all day. So check out Jason at covideo.com, and I've looked at all the video platforms, and Covideo just blows it away, and the team is just a lot of fun to work with, super supportive, and video email, it's the way to go. It's a game changer for your team on both the marketing, the sales, and the customer success side, because it's a way of sharing screens, sharing expressions. I did an episode this week on the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast about nonverbal communication. Everybody admits that it's more than, I don't know what the exact stat, more than 50%, but nobody pays attention to it, nobody teaches it, and nobody really focuses or practices on it. I did a great interview, and the guest really knows his stuff and will share exactly the process to go through, build a daily routine for your salespeople, any customer-facing person, even customer success and marketing. When we're out talking to people, it really matters how we present ourselves as well as the words we actually say. The verbal communication is critical that you're listening to now, but also the state that I get myself in before a podcast, it takes a little bit of effort to make sure there's the energy, not too much, not too little. The words per minute matches up with the listeners, because I used to hear people, hey, I listened to you at 1.5 or 2x, and I go, oh, maybe I should talk faster. So we all have to adapt to that. Also, I want to make sure you're checking out the show notes with all the goodies. I got a free ebook on how large companies make product selections. Everybody talks about how to sell. I talk about how companies buy. That's the game we're playing. We're not playing the sales game. We're playing the how to get them to buy game. So check out that book. It's free at b2brevenue.com. Check out the training courses as well under training, the blog. I'm going to be doing a couple of other ebooks on the hottest topics I hear out there, the biggest questions, so that there's a detailed document about it. I've been sharing great content from Gong.io. Check out their ebooks. Make sure you're subscribing to their blog posts. It's probably one of the best sales blogs out there, as well as Discover.org. They're doing great work, and they're working together with Gong, which is great. Nudge is developing what is going to be a game changer. I'm going to be introducing it in the next couple weeks as far as what they're doing with companies and being able to show you the easiest way to get into companies automatically using AI. And relationships are the new KPI. No one cares how much spam you send or how many cold calls you make that no one listens to, voicemails that get deleted, spam filters that degrade your domain. This is the new world, folks. You can deny it, you can fight it, or you can go along with it. And I'm here to help you go along with it. And if you really want your team to shine, take the course, start the conversation, get the meeting. It is insanely effective. People are getting calls with VPs within the first week of taking the course. People that they've been trying to get in front of for years. And all of a sudden, when you understand how people think and you quit talking about you and your greatness, they all of a sudden want to hear about their favorite topic. That's it, folks. Really appreciate you listening. Make sure your sales team is checking out the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast. I also have a career advice podcast, which is a passion project of mine, because I meet so many people who are just stuck in their career, either too comfortable or not finding what they want. So it's career advice on iTunes and every podcast player, as well as my Sales Questions podcast. I'm getting sales questions by the day, and I love answering them. I love giving my thoughts and my opinions, and I hear so much out there about people who have never sold, presenting themselves as sales experts. It's kind of like SEO. Sales is like the SEO, I guess. Anybody can say they're an expert, and no one can really tell who is. So check that out. I spent my life selling. I don't say I know it all. I definitely don't. And this profession is a lot like psychiatry, where the longer you're in it, the more you find out you don't know, and the more you learn. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.